O'Leary paints a grim picture of the restaurant industry, calling it a recipe for disaster. Bankruptcies, layoffs, and shuttered locations are becoming commonplace, even for well-known brands like Red Lobster and Applebee's, all because of a double whammy of rising food costs and a decline in customer traffic since the pandemic. O'Leary explains that many people haven't fully returned to their pre-pandemic routines. With the shift to remote or hybrid work, those midday lunches with colleagues have become a thing of the past. This has been particularly devastating for restaurants, especially those in expensive urban locations. They're stuck with high rents, but without the foot traffic needed to stay afloat. Think about it. Car dealerships used to be the only way to buy a car. Now, with a few clicks, you can have a car delivered straight to your doorstep. O'Leary believes services like Uber Eats have played a significant role in this decline. The convenience factor is undeniable, but it comes at a cost for restaurants struggling to keep up. Imagine that Applebee's location downtown Dallas. Pre-pandemic, that area was buzzing with office workers grabbing lunch. Now, with many working remotely, foot traffic has dropped by, say, 20%. For a restaurant with a profit margin of 15%, that can be the difference between staying afloat and sinking. A slight dip in customers can push a marginal location into the red, forced to burn cash instead of generating it. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. Here's the real gut punch. Restaurants are juggling multiple challenges simultaneously. Yes, remote work is impacting urban areas, but that's just the beginning. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a restaurant owner. You're already struggling with lower foot traffic, and then wham! Food prices skyrocket. TransUnion, a major credit agency, reports a staggering 30% inflation over the past 4 years. As if that wasn't enough, some states are mandating a $20 minimum wage. So Kevin O'Leary is absolutely right, but he's only scratching the surface. Restaurants are besieged by a triple threat: declining customer traffic, skyrocketing food costs, and rising labor expenses. It's a brutal combination, and many beloved restaurants simply won't be able to survive. It's a tough situation for everyone involved: restaurant owners, employees, and even customers who cherish their favorite spots. O'Leary's breakdown is a good start, but the reality is even more dire. Now, look at the revenue figures for Uber Eats from 2018 onwards. Notice anything interesting in Q1 of 2020? That's right, about the same time the pandemic hit, second week of March, Uber Eats saw a massive surge in business. While there was a modest increase from 2018 to 2019, around 20%, the jump from 2019 to 2020 was nearly 3 times that. This trend continued in 2021 with a doubling of revenue. And although growth slowed slightly in 2022 and 2023 as restrictions eased, Uber Eats' revenue still climbed steadily. Look at it this way. Their revenue went from $1.9 billion in 2018 to a whopping $12.1 billion in 2023. But here's the crucial part. All this new business for Uber Eats translates to money lost somewhere else. Every dollar spent on Uber Eats is a dollar that might have otherwise gone to a restaurant. Look at the gross booking figures. They tell a similar story. From $3.1 billion in 2018 to a staggering $67.8 billion in 2023. That's a massive shift in spending habits. The pandemic undoubtedly played a role in this. With lockdowns and restrictions, people turned to delivery services like Uber Eats in droves. While it was a lifeline for many during those tough times, it came at a cost. Over 200,000 restaurants shut down permanently, and millions of jobs were lost in the industry. It's not just the direct revenue loss for restaurants. The entire ecosystem that supported them suffered. Think of it this way. Imagine a pie representing the total restaurant business. The pandemic essentially shrunk that pie. Money that would have gone to restaurants serving dine-in customers or takeout directly shifted to Uber Eats drivers delivering meals and the pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson developing vaccines. The booming business of Uber Eats came at a steep price for the traditional restaurant industry. The National Restaurant Association paints a grim picture. They estimate that restaurant sales fell a staggering $240 billion short of pre-pandemic forecasts in 2020 alone. That translates to over 110,000 restaurants and drinking establishments closing their doors permanently last year. Now, let's talk about the flip side of this coin. We mentioned Big Pharma. Well, according to reports, they raked in $90 billion in profits, specifically from COVID-19 vaccines. That's a hefty sum. It's almost like a massive wealth transfer. Money that would have been spent at restaurants essentially rolled over into the pockets of pharmaceutical companies. This situation raises some serious questions. Every industry has lobbyists, but in this case, it seems the power imbalance is staggering. Why wasn't the restaurant industry more vocal in protecting itself? What resources did they have at their disposal compared to Big Pharma? Think about it. Even the biggest fast food chains, typically considered affordable options, haven't been immune. Now, consider a non-fast food chain like Applebee's with a market cap, total value, of around $570 million. They reportedly spend a significant portion of that, over $200 million, just on lobbying. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to the resources Big Pharma can bring to bear. So the lesson is clear. The lobbying muscle of Big Pharma far outweighed that of the restaurant industry. This power disparity is what ultimately led to the great 401k rollover, money from shuttered restaurants ending up lining the pockets of pharmaceutical giants. It's a harsh reality, but it highlights the importance of a level playing field when it comes to lobbying power. Uber Eats definitely capitalized during the pandemic, taking a significant chunk of business from restaurants. A lot of this can be attributed to policies enacted during that time. This situation, whether it involves Uber, restaurants, or any other industry, exemplifies a core principle: Darwinism, or survival of the fittest. Companies need to adapt to changing circumstances. How you break it down is key. Can you adapt? That's the million-dollar question. Think about the Fortune 500 list. How many companies from 1950 or even 1990 are still on it today? The turnover rate is astonishing, with estimates suggesting half the companies on that list are replaced every 5 years. By some accounts, only 10% of the world's biggest companies in 1980 remain on that list. Look at some of the fallen giants: Wham-O, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, Kmart, Sears, JCPenney, Bed Bath & Beyond, Radio Shack, Blockbuster. These were industry leaders just a few decades ago. What happened? The answer lies in adaptation. Companies that fail to keep up with the times, make poor decisions, and neglect strategies like lobbying can face extinction. It's about working out, improving, strategizing, and ultimately outlasting the market. But in this case, it wasn't just a matter of adaptation. It felt more like a meteor hitting the Earth, wiping out the dinosaurs, depending on which scientists you believe. The pandemic was that meteor for the restaurant industry. Restaurants were forced to close, and suddenly their business model shifted entirely to delivery through services like Uber Eats. Gone were the beverage sales, the bar tabs, the additional revenue streams. Gone were many of the jobs. Only the chefs remained, preparing food for faceless Uber Eats drivers. COVID was the meteor that slammed into the restaurant industry, and the numbers we discussed earlier paint a clear picture of where the dust settled. Now, this is a cautionary tale for everyone in the restaurant business. People who avoid getting into politics, considering it a dirty business, should make saner decisions, because when you pay taxes, you're already involved in politics. Those who choose not to get involved in politics end up being governed by those who do. So restaurant owners, pay attention to who you vote for. Remember what happened? One political party's policies essentially shut you down, while others kept things open. Look at Disney's situation. Bob Iger offered to help the California park, but they refused to open under those restrictions. The Florida park, under different leadership, thrived. These are real-world examples of how policy decisions directly impact businesses like yours. The next story highlights another trend. With inflation squeezing everyone, more retirees are considering returning to the workforce. It's a new reality we'll explore next. The numbers are staggering. A new AARP survey paints a grim picture for retirees. Chronic inflation and inadequate Social Security benefits are forcing many to reconsider their golden years. Let's unpack this. Social Security payments haven't kept pace with inflation, despite a recent adjustment. The average monthly benefit in 2024 is a meager $1,907, a far cry from the $4,818 monthly expenses reported by Americans over 65. It's a significant gap, and for many, it's simply unsustainable. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's causing real financial hardship. 61% of survey respondents reported daily struggles due to inflation and high interest rates. It's forcing them to reevaluate their retirement plans. Even non-retired investors are feeling the pinch. A quarter of them say they'll need to return to work due to insufficient savings, while another 20% doubt they'll ever be able to retire at all. Inflation is acting like a cruel hand, pushing back retirement dreams for many. Now, here's where things get even more concerning. This trend aligns perfectly with a recent Harris poll. They've been tracking inflation concerns, and the numbers are eye-opening. In the last quarter of 2023, a staggering 79% of people identified inflation as their #1 economic concern. This number has only climbed steadily throughout 2024, reaching a record 84% in May. Interestingly, a separate poll showed that 75% of people over 50 believe inflation is only getting worse. There's a clear disconnect here. The government insists inflation is under control, yet people are feeling the squeeze in their wallets every single day. This affordability crisis is forcing many retirees back into the workforce. They're dusting off their resumes and looking for ways to bridge the financial gap. Imagine a 70-year-old taking a greeter job at Walmart just to make ends meet. It's a heartbreaking reality. But every problem has an upstream cause. Here, the upstream problem is likely a lack of savings and investment planning earlier in life. It's a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. This is a wake-up call for everyone, especially those in their 30s and 40s. Nobody cares about your future financial woes 30 years from now. The question you need to ask yourself is, what am I doing today to secure my financial future? The message is clear. Break the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. Start saving and investing now. Remember, you can't save your way to becoming a millionaire. You need to become an investor. The future you envision for yourself at 70 depends on the actions you take today. Don't get stuck relying solely on Social Security or facing the prospect of working well into your golden years. The choice is yours, heads or tails. Make smart financial decisions now and secure a more comfortable future for yourself. It boils down to this. When you neglect your finances, there are consequences. You end up paying the price later for not taking things seriously. Maybe you were careless with your money, prioritizing entertainment over building a safety net. Skipping work to catch every Miami Heat game might seem fun now, but it doesn't pay the bills when you're older. Remember that saying, Mickey Mantle can't pay your rent? It applies here too. Even professional athletes who make a fortune during their careers often struggle financially later in life if they haven't planned for the future. They're not going to be on your payroll forever. This is why financial responsibility is so crucial. By taking charge of your finances today, you can secure a brighter future for yourself. Let's learn from the mistakes of others and make smart choices that ensure a comfortable and fulfilling retirement.